Good morning, students. In our last class, we have discussed about how the announcement made by M. Hamel seemed to be a thunderclap to France. Now, let us learn what changes came over little Franz after he heard M. Hamel's announcement. And why did he regret of not taking his lesson seriously? Franz was totally shocked by the sudden turn of events. There is a drastic change that has come over Franz. The very announcement made by M. Hamel, it just triggers a set of reaction in Franz. Franz's regret arrived in the form of an internal monologue. It dawns upon him that it was going to be his last French lesson, which he would attend, and after this he would no longer have any opportunity to learn his language. He began to regret, he feels guilty for having wasted his time and opportunity to learn his mother tongue, that is French, when there was still time. Now he will never be able to learn his lessons on France. He hardly knew how to write his own native language properly, and he blamed himself for losing such an opportunity. He said, "My last French lesson. Why, I hardly knew how to write. I should never learn any more. I must stop there then. Oh, how sorry I was for not learning my lesson, for seeking bird's egg or going sliding on the Saar. My books that seemed such a nuisance a while ago, so heavy to carry, my grammar and my history of the saints, were old friends now that I couldn't give up." In these lines he realized that he has wasted his precious time away from the class and indulged more in childish pleasures like seeking bird's egg, going out in the open and playing in the Saar River, and so on. He had done everything but to attend school and learn his native language sincerely. Now he is having to pay the price for all the opportunities which he had lost. He felt a sudden love for his native language, French. The French books that seemed to be a burden on him, that seemed to be very heavy to carry, all his grammar books, his history books earlier, suddenly at this critical junction, they appeared to be his friends. It became something that was too precious to give up. He feels like there is a separation coming. It's a departure. He will no longer have any connection with those textbooks. It feels like a very intimate connection with a friend that has been severed, that is getting snapped. And the pain that one feels, friends at this point of time experiences that particular pain, the agony. In the back of his mind there is regret. He is ashamed of skipping classes and not taking his education sincerely, now that he realizes he had no time to make amends for his mistake. His opinion about his teacher M. Hamel was also changed. Even when M. Hamel was a very cranky, very strict man with ruler in his hand, but now even those negative aspects about him seemed to be downplayed by the fact that M. Hamel was going away and friends would not be able to see him again. He would not get any opportunity to learn his own language. That thought that M. Hamel was going away and friends would never see him again made him forget all about how cranky M. Hamel was. He forgot all about his teacher's strictness, his iron ruler, and friends no longer thought the teacher M. Hamel to be short-tempered and strict. Friends was feeling sorry for him and also respectful towards the man who had spent 40 years of life teaching French, and now he had to leave the school after orders had come from Berlin. Franz now understands that unusual things that he observed prior to the announcement of M. Hamel. He now understands the reason why the villagers attending the class, the reason why M. Hamel wearing the bright clothes, and why everybody was sad. Now everything made sense to Franz. He realized that it was in honor of this last lesson that M. Hamel had put on his fine Sunday clothes. All the village elders who were seated on the back benches came to show their respect, to pay their homage to the teacher M. Hamel for his 40 years of meritorious and faithful service. Their presence was a tribute to M. Hamel on his last day at school. It was their way of thanking the teacher for his 40 years of sincere service. The villagers were also expressing their patriotism and solidarity with France. They wanted to show respect to their country, which was no more theirs, and were sad as their mother tongue French would no longer be taught to them. They were regretful and full of remorse for not having learnt their own language. They felt sorry for themselves that they had not gone to school for longer. The news from Berlin evoked patriotism and love for mother tongue in them, in the villagers. The people in this country suddenly realized how precious their language is to them. The last lesson was an emotional time. Evoked patriotic feelings and awakened the villagers to the importance of their mother tongue. Even little boy Franz started developing a like for the language as well as for the teacher. There is a sense of guilt. Everybody realizes that they have all lost the opportunity of learning their French language when there was a chance, and they just let it go. The villagers regretted that they did not utilize the opportunities given to them for learning French. Now, when everybody has come to know that it was their last lesson, that it was the last time M. Hamel was going to deliver a lecture, everybody gathered and wants to attend it. M. Hamel had been offering his service dedicatedly for 40 long years. This talks about the integrity of the teacher, the dedication, the sincerity, and most importantly, his deep love for the language that he had harbored. So, integrity of the teacher, his sincerity, devotion towards his work, and his love for language. These are basically M. Hamel's traits. And if you have to write an overview of M. Hamel's character, these are the points you must mention. Though he was a very strict teacher, but at the same time he was also compassionate towards his own language. Now it definitely moves us to sympathy to find what will happen to him. 40 years he had dedicated to the service of his nation as a teacher, as a lover of the French language. Now what will happen to him? The story also makes a universal appeal as it highlights our tendency to value things more when we no longer have access to it. When French was taught in the schools of Alsace and Lorraine, the people had take it for granted and did not take it seriously. They skipped their classes, they don't go to school because they always take it for granted. It was only when they were denied the freedom of learning their own language they realized how sorry they are for not paying enough attention to the French lesson. It also applied to the every people that we start valuing things when they are taken away. The people of Alsace and Lorraine were suddenly feeling those emotions. And this is also one of the themes that the writer highlights in the lesson.